Welcome to Charlie in Sotogrande, the podcast where we look at the people, the places, and the passions that make Sotogrande this fantastic community it is.
You know, they're looking to be inspired,
Yeah.
they're looking to be entertained, or they're looking to be informed.
Yeah, knowledge.
You know, and you can have one or you can have a mix,
Yeah.
but you can't not have any of those three.
Hi everybody, welcome to Charlie in Sotogrande, the podcast where we explore people, passion, and everything there is to do here in Sotogrande in the beautiful southern Spain. Today with us we have a very special guest, Alfredo Bloy-Dawson, who is a specialist in media marketing and particularly in video marketing, and does a lot of consultancy up and down the coast with many real estate agents. Alfredo, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. As I said there in the intro, you are like a guru along the coast here in terms of social media and video first and all of that. But before we get into all of that, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? And let's see if the audience can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm English Uruguayan.
Oh, yeah.
And I moved here with my parents in 1974 to Torremolinos, which was the mecca of tourism back in the era, the OG Costa del Sol. And I grew up here, went to an American school in Torremolinos.
That's the accent?
Hence the weird accent.
Okay.
Sometimes sounds Irish, sometimes sounds Canadian and other things. And then spent my adult life in the UK, and I've been back in Spain since 2008, just around the time of the crash. I think a lot of people always make moves when big things are happening.
Why the UK?
I was born there. I went to university there, and I kind of got stuck there.
Whereabouts?
Where I was born?
Where were university?
Oh, at Kingston. So south of London.
I was in Thames Poly.
Okay, yeah. When I was there, it was a poly, but they've a university now.
Greenwich University.
I like to call it university now, even though when I was there, it was like the last year of being a poly. I went and bought a sweater that said university, even though it was.
In France, Polytechnique is actually above university.
Oh, is it?
Level. So, where all my French connections and people I know, I say I went to Polytechnique. So I said, whoa.
Back in my day, you went to poly. It was cheaper and easier to get into than the unis.
Yeah, no, I did it because I wanted to do international marketing.
Right.
And there was two places, Strathclyde in Glasgow, up there, or in Kent, and Woolwich, which is still, but that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's a bit warmer at least.
I know. So you in UK, back here.
Came back here. I worked as an editor for 3.5 years for a newspaper here, and then about 15 years ago, more or less, got into real estate marketing, and I've been doing that ever since.
So never look back.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's hard to be bad at something when you like it, and I'm one of the few people in my game that seems to really like what they do.
Yeah. Well, it's true. You've got to show your passion, and that you do.
I find it genuinely interesting. Yeah. It's the sort of thing that when TV gets boring, I'll start scrolling through stuff to do with what I do on the sofa.
What were your first impressions when you arrived back into Costa del Sol, and did you see the potential in the real estate market, and what did you do?
I mean, I've been coming back to visit friends and stuff over the 90s, especially in the early 2000s, and during that period was where I saw the big transformation, which was with the cranes absolutely everywhere, pre-crash, like in the early, mid-90s to mid-2005-ish. Yeah. It was just cranes everywhere, and they had built the toll road, and the construction had actually gone up to the toll road. Yeah. Now in some cases it's gone over. Well over. So really was the massification of it, and how all the gaps between all the towns had sort of closed, with some exceptions such as Sotogrande. But in that part of the coast, if you go pretty much from Malaga to Marbella, not Estepona now, there's not much where there's a little bit of a gap.
I know.
So a lot of construction, but also it was during the crash. It was like 2008, 2009. So it was a kind of a strange time. The cranes had gone.
Yeah.
The buildings were still there. It was interesting, but I find it fascinating anyway, the whole thing.
I know a guy who was the owner of Euro Gruas. He's a member of San Roque Golf Club, and No, I knew him while this was happening, and he was just sort of bringing cranes down, and it was a big, difficult time for them.
Yeah, it was a mess. I mean, I was lucky. I got into sort of the real estate marketing side of things as it started to recover. So it was like 2011 or something like that.
Yeah.
All the way up till now, and I kind of saw the recovery, and then the good OS came back up, and all that kind of thing. So it's been an interesting thing. But I hadn't worked in real estate before that, but I'd grown up here. So and a lot of my friends were in real estate, so I'd seen the pre. Nobody ever talks about the pre-crash.
Yeah,
Costa del Sol. They always talk about the post.
I mean, I first came here in 1978. I was at Polytechnic, and
we could say university.
And I spoke Spanglish and met some Gibraltarians, and that's why I first came down here. But you couldn't even get across the border. So to get to here, you had to go to Malaga. But the drive was, 3 hours. It's a very small little road, and it was terrible. Yesterday, I had to go to Marbella for another reason, and when you drive along, you get past Estepona, and then you go onto the coast road because I go to. And there's a Kempinski, not the Kempinski way, Kempinski, and then the new place that burnt down, and it's just concrete all the way down. And I was with my young intern who's here, and she was saying, "Why do people like Marbella? It's just all concrete and roads and traffic." And I said, "Yeah, but if you look there, there's a beach, and look there, there's a good restaurant." And I just can't get over it because the difference between Sotogrande and that road is huge.
It's tremendous, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, my father, when I was in, say, the mid-'80s, I would come to Gibraltar once a month, go to Gibraltar once a month from Torremolinos to see my dad, who had a bit office there, to get money, basically, as you do at that age when you're a teenager. And that, like you say, that bus ride used to take hours, down the coast road. When they built the motorway, it changed everything and made everything accessible. But it is very built up.
Big question. What do you think is the main factor that's driving the market today?
Lifestyle choices post-COVID, I think. I think it's the post-COVID lifetime, sort of reevaluating priorities. I think the things that make it attractive have pretty much always been there, mostly. Yeah. There's always been sunny, there's always been a good standard of life, culture's always been good, etc. But I think if people had a top 5 priorities post-COVID, I think quality of life went into top 2 spots at least. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it, personally.
Yeah. And people coming from
everywhere. Everywhere. Certainly the nationality, the spread, it's always been quite international, but in the property market, it's the original dominance of the British market, which I think in 2007, 2008 was 38% of the market, of the foreign buyer market in Spain. Now it's 9%. And that just explains that if you look at the top 10 positions, you have things like Polish, 6% of the market. Yeah. The Brits are 9%. Yeah. And you start thinking of it in those terms.
The Germans are coming up.
The Germans have been, since the last 5-6 years, longer even, the Germans have been in second position to the Brits. There was one quarter about 3 years ago where they actually beat the Brits in terms of the national, the weighting. I think they hit 9.5% of the market was Germans. That's calmed down a little bit the last 18 months. But what we have here with such a broad range of international nationality buying is that when one nationality, there's 2 factors really. One nationality drops, there's always one to replace it. Yeah. And we've seen that, sort of the Swedish market and the German market, and of course that's still have been a bit quiet the last couple of years, last 18 months, but it's been more than overtaken by the Poles, the Americans, and everything else. So that's one of the factors, and I forgot completely what the second factor was, so we'll just go with that one.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a German family who have a place in Mallorca wanting to sell there to come along the costa, and they found Sotogrande. The reason being that they can drive here. And, if things get silly over on the east side of the continent here, they can't fly away. They'll have to probably drive. That's a bit exaggerated, I know, and it's probably not very common, but still.
It's easier than driving to Dubai, which might be an alternative.
Yeah, so that's true.
The thing I wasn't going to mention, I just remembered, was that one of the beauties of what we have here is the things that stop international buyers buying here are based on their own domestic issues. They're nothing to do with the intent or not intent of one. The desire isn't affected. Yeah. So what we've seen, certainly with the Swedish market, we'll probably see it shortly with the German market, is you get pent-up demand. So even when those markets are down and the other ones are building up, when their circumstances change, you then have this mass influx. And we saw that with the Swedish market post-COVID. They were the first to really be allowed to travel, though they didn't have hardly any restrictions. And sort of late 2020, early 2021, they were so dominant on the market. And the Swedish call it the catch-up effect.
The catch-up effect.
You know, when you
it comes out. Okay.
So that's a really nice side to it. And the bit that's a little bit unfortunate, but it's just how it is that the sort of things that affect domestic markets, not all things, like the interest rates will affect their spending power, but conflict and all the other negativity that happens in a lot of places due to various different reasons. If anything, it actually enhances their desire to get out and come live here. So really, what affects the market here is their ability to move here or buy here, not the desire, and that's quite a strong position that we're in.
Now we've seen huge increases on Eastern Europeans, Estonians, Latvians, Lithuanians, family offices calling and saying, I have a family who they have a wealth of 250 million, they want to spend 2-3 million. They want the sun, they want a good investment, and they want safe haven. And that is, it depends on what Mr. Trump says. We get the phone calls, we don't get the phone calls. Because,
for sure.
Let's move on. Seeing is believing, they say.
Right.
Okay. So video first. This is your your tagline almost, isn't it? Video first, and that's how you've moved out of newspaper into video. And tell me that story. How did that go?
Well, there was a bit that happened before that, and that was that I became a marketing director for a real estate marketing company. So the company that supplied services to real estate agencies, social media, SEO, all the bits and pieces. And became apparent fairly quickly. I mean, a lot of the social media stuff was new at the time, so you can't get mad at anybody for not really knowing what they're doing. Nobody really knew what we were hoping was going to happen with this stuff, but we're just trying things. But what became very apparent very quickly was that everything was happening in silos. So an agency or a state agency would have to hire a social media manager to run the social media. There would be somebody would tell you that for you'd have a SEO agency to do your SEO. The SEO agency would tell you you'd have to write content, so you'd have a blog, so you have to find somebody to write stuff for your blog, and they'd be rewriting articles from the local newspaper and stuff like that. And then you'd have somebody doing your lead generation, or maybe looking after your property portal, so from the lead side of things. And all these were happening kind of, you might have one agency doing it, but it was basically different elements that didn't really have much of a relationship between each other. And the social media aspect of it was all product, and in a market like the Costa del Sol, where most agents have access to most listings, it's kind of like 1,000 agencies selling the same pair of sneakers. There's no USP to that. It's really the only thing you could really do would hope to is that they would choose you over somebody else that could sell the same property. So because all these things was happening in silos, it felt very vanilla, and there's a lot of things that we did that we kind of had to put an asterisk on it when people hired us for it. Said, look, we'll do what you're asking us to do, but I'm not entirely sure why you're asking us to do this, because no one's reading the blog, no one's reading this. Long story short, what video as video became accessible, financially accessible for people to do it, started with phones. It meant that now you had a situation that if you did one, let's just use an example. If you were, say you were going to do something to do with Sotogrande buyer's guide, you'd have the blogger write about for your web, all the content. You'd have somebody on social media take some pictures down there saying Sotogrande is wonderful, and all these things would be happening around separately. But we found that if we did one video of yourself talking about Sotogrande, the first thing that it created was baked-in originality, as in the fact that you're saying it, nobody can do it the same way as you. You'll have a different viewpoint, and it became immediately original. This is after years of doing people's area guides for them, where it was almost the same text. We do a written area guide about Porto Bueno, so you're going to talk about restaurants and all this the usual. Everybody writes the same thing. You ask them about it and they talk about it. It's a completely different thing. So first of all, it had originality baked into it, but then we realized, we could take these clips and give them to social. So they don't have to be hunting for pictures. Not just that, but it's putting the person of the company as the trusted source of knowledge of that area. So they're consuming the content, they're associating that with you.
Yeah.
And then we thought, okay, well, we could take, if you really want to have a blog or you had SEO efforts, you could take the transcript and turn that into an article. So suddenly you're no longer rewriting the Sir in English's article about the Sardine Festival in La Cala de Mijas, but now you're actually doing something genuine that's got it's original content, which was like the holy grail at the time. And so what Video First did was, it's kind of something that it was spawned from the idea that happened when Google put a lot of emphasis into mobile. Websites became search engine, became responsive, and people were checking it on the mobiles. And it was mobile first. That's what it was called. So they were saying to people, it never caught on, but Google was trying to say that, like, when you're designing a website, think about it, the mobile design first, not last. And I like that, 14 years later, nobody does that. Everybody designs everything based on a desktop version, and then it's mobile last.
Really?
99%. But it's kind of an afterthought.
We're going through that right now, and I'm dealing with, having to, get the phone and make sure it works there.
Yeah.
And I know, because I look at the data, the little data you have, that more than 70% of people looking at my website through this.
But 90% of agencies will spend all their time and energy on the desktop version. Wow. But that was mobile first anyway. Yeah. So we thought, okay, well, if we could apply video first as a strategy, meaning if you can, it's not video only, so that everything has to be a video. You can take a picture. It's fine. If whenever there was something from content, something we wanted to achieve, we'd ask the question, can we do this on video? And if we can, that then feeds everything else. Yeah. So the real win was in the fact that you were finally having. I put my head on my old marketing director role at the agencies, and now we have original content. Right. Now we have actual content. Yeah. That comes from the agent, because
it can't be replicated.
Yeah, nobody can. They can do the same video. 100 agents could do the same video as you, but they'll be slightly different because they're not you. So that's what it is.
Okay, video first. Okay, and that's why it's so powerful, because real estate is about showing property, but it's who's doing it, and who do you trust to tell me about it. That must be key in terms of that strategy.
Absolutely. I mean, you have product. You have the elements of the purchase is product. It's lifestyle, and then it's expertise. They're the three things that you need, though, that you're looking at when you're buying, isn't it? So the product, clear. That's a fairly straightforward thing, and agencies are pretty good at that. I think there's a great deal to learn on that. Yeah. Lifestyle, a lot of agencies have their idea of video first was kind of lifestyle first, so they sell the lifestyle. And then, and you do that to some degree. You're selling what Sotogrande has to offer, because people are not dreaming of 4 walls and a ceiling and some windows. They're dreaming of a lifestyle, right? Of course. The practicality is they have to then find something that fits their needs. But the third element, which answers the question, why you, Charlie, and not the guy next door, isn't the lifestyle. No. Because that lifestyle's for everybody. Yeah. And it's not the product, because you can both sell the same house, technically, most of the time. But it's why you. Yeah. Like, who do I trust? Yeah. Who's listening to me? Who understands my needs? And that element is what that gives you. So it really is like the know, like, trust. They build an affinity with you, so that when the time comes for them to buy, it's not the product that's driving the inquiry, it's you. And then they're asking you to find them a product, and it's that way around. And that changes things fundamentally, because you change the dynamic of lead generation, of follow-ups, of this sort of faceless, I'm trying to speak to somebody that's in another country that isn't answering the emails. And it doesn't solve everything, but it does solve that. Yeah.
In terms of delivery of a video, I mean, we have YouTube, which is wide. You have Instagram, which is the other way around. You've got many different ways of doing this. One of the things with my guys here is that what's it for? Do we have to do it this way? What sound do you need? Music. Is that something you when you're consulting? Is that an issue? Is that something?
It's a massive issue. I mean, I'd say the two big issues. One is the practicalities of knowing what resources to put into it and where to put your money. Yeah. Because there's no shortage of videos that agents have spent thousands on about the Nispero festival in a village, and that doesn't fit within what they're talking to their customers about. Yeah. So it never becomes useful. Yeah. Okay. It's more of a passion project. So first of all is how to make it financially viable. And the key word there is sustainability, and not in a sort of eco way, but in a, how can we make this plan something that we can do forever, because you're adopting it as a strategy. You're not having a little go. It's a bit like when Property Portal first brought pictures into the equation and go, oh, let's have a go at that. Okay, it gets to a stage where you're no longer having a go, and it's just how it's done. So this is how it's done. So first of all, it's like the financial implication. Do I hire somebody in-house? Do I hire an outside company? Do I have a mix? Do I do some stuff myself? What are the quality thresholds? So that's quite a technical hump that people have to get over in the consulting side. Look at it right now. And then the biggest, once they get that clear, the next thing where they fall down, and I understand why it is sort of not that straightforward, is what to do with the video when you've got it.
Exactly.
Because the biggest misconception in this market, in particular, is this idea that's built from Mr. Beast sort of thing, where like, if you build it, they will come. You know, do the good video and forget about it. You're sorted. Everyone's going to come hunting for this video about Sotogrande Marina. And the reality is, it's a fairly niche thing that we're doing. We're not that funny and we're not that sexy, and we kind of know what makes things viral, and it isn't what we're doing. It isn't. We're not funny cats, and we're not sexy people, and you know those things. We know those things.
Well, there are sexy people. If I do something, present a house, and Stephanie does exactly the same thing, she'll get more clicks.
Exactly. That's how it is.
She's got blue eyes and she's pretty.
That's how it is. So you get someone that looks like me or you, more like me. You know, even more so the case with me. You're thinking, okay, it's a very niche thing going on. It's someone that's looking to buy. So the delivery element of this video content, you have to have that clear. And I don't mean clear. It's not as complicated as it sounds. You know, if it was think of it as a box of magazines that you've ordered. You got the box. They're in the box in your office. How well will they perform if they stay in the box? And what does delivery involve? It can involve a lot of different things. You can hand it out physically to people. You can get a company to do it. Same sort of thing. So in terms of what you're talking about, then is channels. So what are the channels for delivery? And then YouTube is one, and you might need to put a little bit of money behind them to give them a push, because not everybody's coming hunting for it. Social media, same thing. In social media, there's a saying that came around when Facebook first started becoming more of a for-profit sort of thing. And that was, you got to pay to play. And the nice thing with it, the bad thing about it, is that you take the same post, you do 2 posts on social, one you put a little bit of money behind, one you don't. The difference is so dramatic. And by little money, I'm talking, you could put €5 on it. I'm not talking 5,000. So they make so on the negative side, they make you pay to play. On the plus, you don't have to pay a lot to get some traction. And there's plenty of examples of this. So the rule of thumb tends to be, whatever your resources are in terms of time or money, if let's just call it around 100, just to think of a number. You know, if you're going to spend 100 this week on something, on video or time or money or whatever, then spend 50 on the video, and then spend 50 or maybe spend 70 on the video, and spend 30 on delivery.
Leverage,
Because otherwise it's a box of magazines in the office that no one's going to see.
I know. I mean, we, in a previous life, sadly yesterday or the day before, Eddie Jordan died. Eddie Jordan's a friend. He had a house here. We used to go cycling, and the reason he's a friend is that when we know him is because the company I work for was to sponsor one of his cars. And I did Williams as well, but we spent something like $18 million on sponsoring.
You were in the tobacco company,
Formula One car, and we spent not quite that, but certainly 40 million in leveraging that photograph of the mirror with the brand there, and you know, in everything. I mean, not just media, but TV, and you know, pushing it, and interviews, and getting people in. So I know exactly what you mean. You know, obviously.
I mean, it's sad, but it's just part of the mix. You got to have that in your plan. So yes, to answer your original question, as a consultant. That's the consultation. That's what it solves. It's kind of like the Costa del Sol is littered with agents' YouTube channels where they spend thousands on these videos, and they have 55 views, and they have 60 staff. So not even the staff have seen it. You know?
That's right. Just moving on to personal branding then, because I think that is, you know, naturally we're going into. I mean, why am I doing what I'm doing here in Sotogrande? And I think I'm probably the first to do it, and probably ahead of everybody else, simply because I started. Is I look at America. I always look at the US and see who's doing what. And Ryan Serhant I think he was a wannabe actor, and therefore I think he felt comfortable in front of the camera, and he was one of the first to do this. He always talked about, of course we're selling homes, but no one really wants to see that on over and over and over and over. So he always talks about an and. Now, his and is media, which fits nicely. But, when I was thinking about my and is Sotogrande, because that's what I'm talking about. But it could be wine, it could be restaurants, it could be food, whatever. But developing that personal brand, for me is still something, something I struggle with all the time because, but I do see results. That's the wonderful thing about it all.
When you start seeing the results, it's kind of although you sort of think I knew this was right, but now I know it's right. Yeah, it's very encouraging.
It happens when people say, "Oh, I've seen you on Instagram. I see you all the time," or I don't see you physically, but I see you all the time. In a Chiringuito, someone asked me for my autograph, which I
fantastic.
And there he goes, and that's never happened to me ever. Someone asking for my autograph, the phone calls from serious investors coming. You're the guy we see most about Sotogrande, so you must be the guy who knows about this
100%.
Whatever it may be. It all works. It's incredible. I'm not going to give too many tips to anybody out there, but it does.
No, it does. I think that one of the things that it's interesting that you should say that, because one of the things that you'll never hear me say when I'm talking to somebody about why they should do this, and I haven't said it so far, is as a form of lead generation, right?
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you won't get very far. Yeah. If you're waiting for that lead to come in before you do your next video, you'll be stuck on one video, right? It's a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
You don't know when it's going to happen. It depends on how good you are at it and how interesting it is, and and so many other factors. But the very nice fringe benefit to all of this is you start getting inbound inquiries where they're asking you to sell them something.
Yeah.
It's a complete flip of the tortilla. Yeah. You're no longer following up a lead. They're saying, "Look, I want to buy something. I don't know what yet, but I want you to do the finding for me." Yeah. Because you don't know them, but they know you, and they trust you, and you're the one that seems to know what they're talking about. So 100% it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you go onto a website, the About Us, they're all the same. We're wonderful. We're honest. We do this job. We do it.
Everybody's been doing it for 25 years.
Exactly.
So they just add up wherever experience they got, so it gets to 25.
Yeah. And you have to be that. What are the key mistakes do you think people are making when they're trying to build a brand?
Not really being true to themselves, not being genuine. Mm-hmm. I think Sean Woolley from another agency, estate agency, Cloud9, right? Sean Woolley from Cloud9, he says this. When at the same time as a lot of the snazzier agencies were doing Ferraris and helicopters and things, he was like a likable Brit talking about stuff on this sort of conversation. Yeah. And he says, look, we could do those things, but that's not who you're going to get. Yeah. When you actually come as a customer, I'm not picking you up in a Ferrari, and we're not cool, and we're not going clubbing with you. Yeah. We're here, we're consultative. And there's a really cheesy saying, which is your vibe is your tribe. Yeah. And that's the pitfall, is really not projecting what they're actually going to get. So then for you build a brand, I have agents that say to me, look, I got 150,000 followers on TikTok. How do I use this for work? Yeah. And it's the wrong way around. They should have had this conversation first. Yeah. Like, exactly. Well done for building that audience, but are these bunch of 14-year-old teenagers from Latvia, or are we talking people that... so I think not being true to themselves is one of the biggest pitfalls. Yeah,
that's very key. But it's enjoyable.
It's great fun.
It's so fun. Yeah.
But what I mean by that, like, when people, now that people know you more broadly, that you don't know them but they know you, you probably start to get this sort of feedback, which is, oh, you're just like in the videos. That's a good sign. Yeah. It's when they're looking at you like, you're miserable. You sound like fun on the videos.
At the beginning, you talk to camera and you make a mistake, and you say, that's good, and you're looking for perfection. And then I said, no, let's leave a couple of errors. Sometimes I actually put an error in on purpose, because I can talk, and this all comes out and says that's too professional.
Yeah, and again, there's plenty of. I mean, these guys that are much younger than us will tell that there is plenty of information that supports the argument that on social, especially, if it's overproduced and too much like an ad, it has worse engagement because people detect that, and more originality and authenticity works better, which is great for when you're starting out because that's all you're getting is authenticity and originality. But I think you've hit it on the head there. I think that there is a saying, or another cheesy saying. Sorry, I'm coming out with them all today. Is that perfection is the enemy of done. Yeah. And this really applies to video. I've worked with agencies that has to be pixel perfect, and it's not seeing the light of day. And they have thousands of videos, thousands of euros worth of videos unpublished because it's just not quite right. Yeah.
I mean, a property tour, you can do it, and one does it with us and without us. And it's the same property because, we need to do it for, maybe a non-branded one to put onto someone on an MLS thing.
Yeah, to share with other agents.
So you don't want it. I think Idealisa doesn't like people in videos neither and that sort of thing. But then, when you do the bit, you can do something that will actually make people want to see it more. Do something. And the last one I did was, I was at the beginning of the entrance of the house and I said, today we are. And the next time you saw me, it was on the other side by the pool, looking at this particular property, which happens to be on I'm pointing at the golf course, and that just, I think that helps.
Of course it does. I mean, there are three elements to the content really that people are looking for, and it's going to be.
Pay attention, boys.
I probably forget two of them, but it's they're looking to be inspired, they're looking to be entertained, or they're looking to be informed.
Yeah, knowledge.
And you can have one, or you can have a mix. Yeah. But you can't not have any of those three, and that's sometimes where the self-indulgent stuff comes in, where it's neither entertaining, it's not funny, it's not inspirational, and it's not really informative. They're just making noise, and putting yourself in the frame for no reason. Yeah. So if you could combine the informational aspect, say in a property tour, with the aspirational aspect of owning this house and the lifestyle that comes with, and chucking a little bit of entertainment, you got all three. Yeah. So for sure, totally agree.
It works. Moving on, AI makes me nervous. It's very helpful, and I use it. We all use it, I think, now, and to some extent. I use it more on Google now. I'm watching TV and I hear something. I punch something. Is that true? So and so, and you get an answer, and it helps you live and understand things. But in our business, how do you see that developing?
I have no idea. Honestly, I've given it a lot of thought and I'm involved with it, but I think we collectively are thinking about what this is the wrong way. I think we completely got it wrong. I think we're taking, we've got a Ferrari in our drive and as the engine's running, we go, hey, we can heat our coffee on the engine. Yeah. And that's not really what this is for. So I think currently it's great fun. It's amazing, saving time, loads of time for loads of people, agencies as well, listing descriptions, etc., etc. So really, really good. I think it could fundamentally change how real estate is done, what people need agents for. Yeah. Forget about marketing people and stuff like that. There's a sort of a logical argument that originality and genuine authenticity is in a stronger position to survive versus the more vanilla content that maybe some estate agencies do generally. If it's all rehashed, if it's all done by we do this, we take the picture, we do that, we put it on the lista, then we stick it here, then we do that. There's a series of steps. No doubt AI will do that in a snip before you know it. Yeah. And that will eliminate a few positions. And for a lot of business owners that have creativity and a bit of imagination and hopefully somebody young around them, I think it's going to give them, it's going to be a great equalizer in terms of resources and people to do things. But I think it will, it's already, the saying that art imitates, life imitates art. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's something I'm already seeing. I don't know about you, but 4 years ago, nobody used the term evolving landscape in spoken English unless they were very posh.
Epitome,
another one, right? And there's a whole list of these things.
Nestled in.
And what I'm already seeing are agents, particularly non-native English agents, which is probably the majority, talking ChatGPT.
Yeah,
They're using the terms. Yeah. They're saying evolving landscape, and I'm like, wow, okay, they've learned this from ChatGPT.
Yeah,
because they're using ChatGPT to do their emails, the text, and all that.
Yeah, and it's all there. And
I think I'd be the same if I was trying to do Swedish or something. But
of course.
So you're seeing a case with ChatGPT for the native speakers. It's kind of going, that's not how people actually speak.
Yeah.
That people are actually speaking like that. So God knows.
There's a guy I follow, an American again, and he's broke his hand. And you can see him with the casts, and he says, guys, I did this. He said, I spoke into ChatGPT 4 for 20 minutes, and I talked to him about this, I can't remember exactly the subject, whichever it was, and then I asked him to play it back to me. I didn't touch the keyboard. Then I asked him to convert that into a keynote speech, okay, that I was going to give to a convention somewhere. And there it came up, and I read it, and it was terrific. And then I asked some other AI thing to do me 10 slides that could support this presentation, and he did this all in an hour. And there was my keynote speech with my presentation, all done with him. I didn't touch the keyboard. Imagine someone sitting in London. ChatGPT. I'm looking for a 4-bedroom swimming pool, south-facing property in Sotogrande. Could you please look for, blah, blah, blah. And it's done the search for them, presumably. I don't know whether it's possible or not.
Yeah, it is possible.
And they would, pick up the phone to the ones that would rank. Hopefully I'm there because I've done it and I do. And they say, let's call Noel because they've got a house that's in a place called the F Zone, which I don't know what it is, but let's give them a call. So they haven't even written an email to me. They've done it that way. That's scary. Well, not scary, scary good. How do I keep ahead of that curve?
It's impossible to tell. All you can do really at this stage is keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't keep ahead. You can't be fully immersed in everything that comes out because every day there's 100 things coming out that you can now do. But you kind of have to keep one foot on the train. Is that would be my advice, because very quickly you're going to find that the agency next door has got one guy sat in the office and he's doing what your team of 10 are doing in terms of productivity because he knows what he's doing. Or he's got maybe a 18-year-old that knows what they're doing and helping them. Yeah. So I think you got to be careful not to get off that train and kind of go, it's just all this AI stuff's doing my head in. Yeah. I think that's the risk. Yeah. What it can do, will it change how people search for property? Will that determine how you're going to get your leads in the future? Right? How are you going to get your leads in the future? Is it going to be through a property portal? Will people even use property portals? Is it going to be, are people going to Google stuff? Will ChatGPT? Will ChatGPT allow you to do an ad? Yeah. So you can get leads that way? Who knows, right? You just got to keep your eye on it. You got to keep your foot on it, I think, at the moment.
That's right. Leveraging content and algorithms. You do something, you think you're doing it right, and you don't get any traction. And then you look at someone else and you say, oh my God, they did something very similar, and they're getting traction. Am I doing something wrong? Behind the screen, the algorithm.
Of what? Where? Like on social, you mean?
Yeah, social, definitely, yeah.
I mean, the algorithms are, it's no longer really social media, it's interest media, as in they're designed to very quickly feed you whatever you're in the mood for. So there could be any myriad of reasons why suddenly one thing that you did yesterday that's very similar to what you did today, or the guy next door is getting fed to 10,000 people. But if you think about the way they work, is that they will identify what somebody is in the appetite for. So you can be looking at Formula One stuff on your phone, and the next 50 things you see are Formula One things. Yeah. Just very quickly identified that. So all those people will get that view from you. Yeah. If today you're not looking for that, then they won't. So I think that my thoughts on the subject is that not to overanalyze, not to underanalyze either. Right. As in you gotta ask yourself these things. I've got plenty of examples of three TikToks from the same person, pretty much talking about the same thing. One's got 400 views, one's got 1,000, and one's got 75,000. Yeah. Wow. Same dude, same video, same quality, same aspect ratio, same color, same all the things you can say, maybe this one's got better audio, this has got better that. Yeah. Same channel. I think the trend the algorithms are doing for the trend on social, which is a good thing, I think, is that you rely less now on your audience size. If your content is relevant to what people want to see, it's going to deliver it whether you have 3 followers or 3 million followers.
Right.
It's bad for people that have 3 million followers because they're seeing a decrease. You no longer have that. So it's not like you would think about it traditionally almost like a mailing list. You know, I got 3,000 followers, that's 3,000 people that will see my content.
Yeah.
I think now somebody with 10 followers could have 10 million views on a reel or a TikTok if it's considered to be interesting enough or funny enough.
Absolutely. I mean, my question was, what are the biggest factors influencing content visibility today? And I remember when it all started, if you had a dog, you know, people that got you more views. Then you got no dog, then you got your baby or your grandchild, and that got you more views. It's just moves so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's common sense.
Yeah,
it goes back to the 3 things.
Yeah,
you know, I think for social, the informative has less of a hook, and it's more the entertainment or inspiration.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you do a reel of you saying something, and you do the same reel of you holding a cat saying something, you'll do better. You have the same reel of you saying something and Stephanie saying the same thing, Stephanie will do better.
Exactly.
Just it is common sense when you really think about it.
Exactly. Moving on again, multiple listing systems. Is social really going to impact on that? Because everything I read, and I asked ChatGPT, what's the impact? And MLS generally. I mean, I along the coast here, there are more agencies than we need, and they have product, and they have product because resales online or other ways of getting listings. These people have 10,000 properties. They have no idea what they're offering. I get people coming here from Marbella because we have product. And by the way, 95% of what we have is direct because we only work Sotogrande. And they say, I want to see this house. They have no idea where it is. They have no idea if it's got a sea view. Maybe the description says it has a sea view. Multiple listing systems, plus they all have different prices, different number of bedrooms maybe. They go onto Idealista 50 times. Where are we going with this? I mean, it's...
I think that the control of that comes from outside, meaning what would make it better would be... There's one thing that would make that fix it straight away. You want to know what that would be? 1% commissions. You ain't sharing anything if you're getting 1% commission. I'm not advocating that, but because there's a lot of work to do with an international audience, a lot of investment you got to make. But that would fix it.
Yeah.
You look at Barcelona, where the commissions are much lower. There's very little sharing going on. The minute you remove sharing from the equation, this solves your problem.
Yeah.
That's the one way. The other way comes from regulation, for example. If there was a tighter, people have to do a course and learn a little bit of product knowledge and a little bit more about what they're doing before they become an agent, then you'll have better qualified people coming. People are not going to bring buyers here without realizing where this is and what this is and what this isn't. And then the third element can be controlled to some degree with the MLSs themselves. So here in the Costa del Sol, there's several, but the two that kind of you hear about most are Resales Online and Inmobalia. And traditionally, I haven't been into either one of those for over a year, so maybe they've changed it, but traditionally, Resales Online is well known for having everything, but also being a little bit wild, and everyone. And Inmobalia has less choice typically, but it's better policed. So, for example, if you went into Marbella, you can be much more. There's far more options on who you're going to share it with, and how you're going to share it, and to what degree you're going to share it, than there is in some of the other MLSs.
Resales is total. I mean, you just become a member or whatever you call it, and then you get the whole lot.
You're either in or you're out. Where there's not like levels of it. So I think that's one way of controlling it.
They have a cloning system now. So
you kind of still have to get permission to put this on your website or put it onto the lista, and there are levels, and there are more policing in place. So, and then the fourth element to make it better comes from your side, as in who you're willing to do, your own screening, right?
Clearly.
You must have a level of screening before you show somebody a €5 million villa from an agency that you've never heard of, that they've probably been doing it for 10 minutes. You're going to want to make sure that they're it's a serious visit, that they know what they're looking at, etc. So that's more work for you, but that some agencies that have what I'm trying to say is some agencies and developers do more screening than others. So the more you screen, the less waste of time you have.
Yeah, MLS. I mean, it's something which I feel is the multiple listing system and sole agency. I mean, people use the word exclusives as an exclusive to me or an exclusive property, and I think that word mixes people up. So if you use sole agency and I'm a sole agent, I can then share it with the people I want, pitch it at the right level in terms of who I think those agencies can reach, and it may be the Finn guy who can go to Finland, the Swedish guy who can go to Finland, or whatever. But it's controllable. Whereas putting on resales online is just devalue the product.
I mean, like I say, I haven't been in resales online for a long time, so I can't speak specifically about that. But I think the key bit here is to look at it from the end user, the seller, and the buyer. Is as a seller, if you choose one agent in this market, you want to make sure that agent is sharing with other agents. Because otherwise, like you said, you're missing the Finnish market, you're missing the Polish market. There's not many agencies that literally have the whole globe covered.
Correct.
There are niches within niches. So the choices that the agent has is either put your listing with 10 agencies, the Finnish agency, the Polish agency, the American agency, etc., or put it with one, but make sure that one that you've chosen, does share it with those others. Then it's a win-win for everybody, I think.
No, I think generally speaking, people do share it because you have 100 properties, you can't deal with all of them all the time. You try, but sharing is not a bad thing.
I think the big thing in the market is that the vast majority of transactions involve two agents, and the vast majority of new agencies, if you took a 3-year period, in our market at least, the vast majority of those are doing business without any listings. So they need access to that. They tend to start with off-plan and new developments because they get full commission and they don't need to do anything. They've got good marketing materials to work with, and that's how they can generate leads. Because if they haven't got the listings, they got to get the buyer. And to get the buyer without a listing is tricky. So they do that through things like off-plan.
No, I mean, Sotogrande, we've seen, I'm happy to talk about this, my margin 5 years ago was 4.5%. I'm now to 3.2%. And why is that? It's because I'm sharing more. Why am I sharing more? It's because I have more people from outside Sotogrande coming in, looking for property here, and principally Marbella. Marbella agents, either they've no inventory or Sotogrande has become more popular or whatever the reason. I think I know what the reason is, but they're coming this way. And, of course we're going to share. I mean, it's we want to do right for the vendor as well. And, we want to get things done.
Yeah, totally. I mean, some people talk about conflicts of interest and within the market to do with sharing commission and so on. That's just baked into the market. So the best thing a seller can hope for is that they have, and the buyer, really, the buyer's agent, is that there's trust that you're looking at for that. You're not saying no to an agent because you want to keep all the commission to yourself and it's going to sit on the market for another 6 months. And vice versa, that they're not taking you to a listing that isn't the right listing for them when there's a perfectly suitable listing because this one's giving them a better commission. So that's where the trust of what we were talking about earlier is so important.
But it does give me a dilemma because we have grown. And I don't know if Sotogrande has grown or my share of Sotogrande has grown. And that brings you to the question of data. Data on this coast, it's wild, wild west. And I know you're very into it. You post it all the time. You reference whoever's given it, so we know where it's come from, and you can look it up. But if I go into internet and I put my father's postcode where I was brought up, and I can follow the property price of that house simply by putting in his postcode into Google, and it will tell me. And it will tell me who next door was sold and when, and I can click on it. I can go literally when it was last sold. I mean, my father's hasn't been sold since the 70s, but I can say, look at the one opposite, and you can see more or less where you're at. Here, and in many other countries, I'm not saying it's just singular to Spain, is a problem for people who really want to analyze it.
And it's a problem for some of the core buyers that buy here, the international buyers, because the UK, Sweden, places like that, they have the same transparency. So it is a problem. And that is why, like when somebody's buying from another country, They don't know the system. They don't know the process. They don't know the taxes. They don't know a bunch of things. They maybe know a little bit about the area, but not a lot about the area. And then you throw into that, you add to that the fact that there's no historical data available to them about the property they're inquiring about.
Yeah.
The amount of trust that they have to put in their agents is insane. I mean, it really is. If there was ever an explanation as to why you have to be careful who you pick as an agent, it's that. Because you're at their hands. They know the area. They know whether that's a good area, an upcoming area, not coming out. If you're buying a primary residence in the town next door to where you're buying, you know, the agent's still opening the door for you. They're basically they've got product and they're showing you product. Here, the consultation part of being an agent is so huge, and the fact that there is no physical sales data. So for price per square meter, historical, you know, you say, why is this a good price for this villa, Mr. Gubbins, at 4 million? And they're going to have to trust what you tell them, because there's nothing to show them particularly official to say.
And that trust comes from my analysis, I think, because I will say, I value by building a block. And I'll go in and I'll look at what that piece of land or that house is sitting on is worth if it was just a plot today. And somehow I can come to numbers because I know what's available, I know what's been sold, I know, you know, so you come to, in that area, it's 300 euros a square meter. You know, if you go to somewhere else, you know, I sold a house here, it was 1,000 euros a square meter. So you need to understand. And then you go into construction costs. You know more or less what construction costs is because you talk to architects, you talk to builders, and what it is today to replace that property. So if it's a 300 square meter house and you've got to replace it, it will cost you X. Okay. Now, then I go in and I open the door and I say it's got gold taps, silver taps, or brass taps. You know, and I say it's got really good windows.
Yeah, good finishes.
Yeah. So, and then it's not that; it's a little bit of a.
Well, then you call on your experience, which is why the experience of the agents, as much as it seems unfair to new agents, because everybody starts somewhere, it really has. I don't think agents realize how valuable that is. You know that. As a buyer or even a seller to value your property, the experience of the agent will determine if you're on point with pricing in both directions. Sure. For the buyer, there's probably even more elements to deal with in terms of is it the right thing for what I'm looking for, or my kids, and whatever the situation. But yeah, the lack of official data makes the market very confusing, and here more so because you don't have. Not here, Sotogrande, here in the Costa del Sol, because it's quite spread out. Yeah. Whereas if you take a city environment like Madrid or Malaga or something like that, it's so condensed into a few blocks that you can take some of the data and kind of say, okay, there's 1,000 available properties within a square kilometer, and this is the average price, and this one's in that neighborhood, and this is the price, so it looks about right. Whereas here you have a little urbanization of 5 villas, another urbanization with 2, a standalone villa, and they all have their own thing going on. You know, so the data doesn't really mean anything.
And then you hear in the press, you know, they say that the so and so said that the average price has gone up so and so in San Roque. We know San Roque is Sotogrande, but also San Roque town and other parts, and the average is very different. It's not representative of Sotogrande.
And really, the last thing on the data thing I was going to say is that in terms of how the market is, which is a great another part of the agent's role of explaining to the buyer, is this a good time to buy, not a good time to buy, and how's the market, all that kind of stuff. The Spanish national statistics, generally speaking, have very little to do with what's happening here on the ground. As in, sometimes it correlates, but quite often a lot of the stats surrounding it, employment, GDP, all those sort of things. For Spain has nothing. It's a second-home market. You kind of have to look at what's the market like in Sweden, what's the market like in the UK, what are the interest rates like there, really to understand what's going to happen here. So quite often you'll find that in the luxury real estate, globally, the stats have more relation to each other from country to country than within the same country where you took the totals. You know, the trends and where things are going.
No, absolutely true. We see that all the time. We touched on regulation, agencies and regulation. What's your take on it? Should we, shouldn't we? Double-edged sword?
All of those. All of those, yeah. We do. We should. I think at the very least, we start with the basics. You need education. You need a code of conduct, and you need some degree of enforcement of that code of conduct. You got to police it. So, within Spain, there's a sort of a bit of a be careful what you wish for, because they might give you regulation, but not the type that you want. Yeah. They've put it into place in the Costa Blanca and Catalonia, Valencia, so the Balearics. Yeah. Valencia region and the Balearics, but then there was a court case last week in the Balearics that said, we're not going to make it compulsory anymore. So they're removing the compulsory elements of it. So it's a kind of one step forward, one step back. Here in the Costa del Sol, I don't think I've ever spoken to an agent that doesn't think it would be a good thing. So I think everybody agrees that there should be some sort of regulation. I think those are the elements, really. It's some sort of barrier to entry in terms of training, minimum training, at least on the legal aspect of buying a property and stuff like that. A enforcement element of a code of conduct, so that if agents are acting unethically, there's someone you can call to do something about it and remove their license and stop them trading. I think everybody would welcome that. I don't think anybody would be against that. Double-edged sword, yeah, it's a barrier to competition. So you probably have a lot of good agents that, for one reason or another, might not be in the market that should be in the market.
Ones will get bigger, probably.
It secures the people that are in, and it sort of slows down the influx. Yeah. So there's a bit of the reason why agents all want regulation is because they see that as a way of stopping more competition coming into town. Right. Yeah. Not only, but that's the sort of what's in it for them is it'll be better for your business if there are fewer agents, right? Yeah. Okay. So, but a lot of the agents that I speak to that are professional, ethical, they want it because they are worried for the actual end users, the buyers. They're worried about buyers being misinformed and sellers being misinformed, and it makes it harder for them to do their job properly. Yeah. So I think the contentions are real. There is, like I say, a bit of a fringe benefit, which is less competition, which nobody hates. But yeah, I think it's got to come. Whether it comes now or it comes in 10 years' time, who knows? There are rumblings that it's going to come into place. Something's going to come into place this year. Yeah. Whether it does or not, that's down to Spanish politics, which is anything can happen.
I know, and you look at the rental issue at the moment, and this doubling of the 100% tax and all this. I mean, it's all
it's a mess.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It scares the market. It scares the people that are looking at it.
Yeah.
When Spain's doing so well, compared to other countries, it's growing, it's doing well, and you get these, it's doing well despite themselves. I'm not saying who, but
yeah, no, totally. It's just like really thanks, but why kind of comes to mind a lot of the time. What you're trying to do here, a lot of the things that we see here on the coast is something that's a result of something political that's happening in the big cities. Yeah. So we don't really understand why they're doing it to us. What for?
I mean, affordable housing is an issue. We all know that.
Of course it is.
And it's a big problem. It's a big problem in any country. I've heard of in this area in Sotogrande that the mayor has requested some of the promoters to please help with some affordable housing, and there may or may not be friction. I don't know exactly what's going on, but it's something that I think big developers should consider. It's being part of the community almost. It's if you want to be. I suppose, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I already hear of that case where there's developers that are, agreeing with the town hall to put a certain percentage of affordable housing as part of getting the license for a large project. But I mean, I think that's more the government's job. I don't mean to be putting it off us and putting it onto someone else, but, yeah, we agree. And people need to be able to afford the housing. Do something about it. But why are you talking to us? It's like going into a Rolex shop and saying, no, stop selling Rolexes because people need to have Casios. Yeah. I say, well, talk to Casio. It's just, for us, it doesn't seem to, one doesn't follow the other. Yeah. If you stop building a development in the 7 or whatever in the center of Sotogrande, there's very little cause of stopping that other than less investment coming into Sotogrande. Yeah. And there's 7 families that might enjoy it. But what's the alternative? They're going to put $3 building blocks in there.
Not there, but maybe the town hall can give a piece of land, in San Roque, and you can very quickly help out by putting something maybe at cost. And not
but I mean that's always that sort of dealings with town halls has always been in place for other things. You pay for the road, and we'll do it.
Yeah, that's
so for sure. But I think it's a governmental thing.
Absolutely,
they're just chucking grenades at us because they're easy targets.
Of course. Yeah, that's what they do. Before I let you go.
We could go on all day, couldn't we?
We could, yeah. Is there anything you would like to comment on that maybe I didn't ask you about?
I'm surprised you haven't asked me, as a person that works in Marbella mostly, whether the perception of Sotogrande is now compared to a few years ago, and is it changing, and does it match what your perception is?
Okay, what do you say?
Yeah.
Because I say I'm the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. I mean, I don't see Marbella as a competition. I see it, and I think I've said it many times. It's different, and you can't really compare them because they're different. And Sotogrande is not a town. Sotogrande is not a city. Sotogrande is, if it's sat next to La Zagaleta, it would be just Sotogrande is up there next to La Zagaleta, and that's what it is. It's a resort. Now it happens to have Pueblo Nuevo, which is, interesting enough, what we're just talking about in terms of when you buy a piece of land, the promoter will give something back to the town hall, and that's what Mr. McMicken gave back to the town hall, and that's why Pueblo Nuevo was created. And Sotogrande needed that because they needed gardeners and plumbers and electricians and everything else for them to live. So I don't never compare them, but I'm interested in your views.
I think the Costa del Sol now is in the strongest position it's ever been in terms of offering to foreign buyers, or to buyers then generally, because you have Malaga, you got the Marbella sort of offering, which and then you have Sotogrande, and there are three side-by-side resorts that appeal to slightly different people, but are very complementary to each other. So I think it's like the trifecta for me. You kind of have the three bears, if you like. You're going to have a bit of urban living with its culture and all that stuff that's becoming very hip, and tech and all that. Then have Marbella, which is more the sort of traditional golf and entertainment and shopping and stuff like that. And then Sotogrande, it's kind of new money versus old money. I think that's not changed. I think that's still the perception. The perception is Sotogrande is kind of a bit more posh and a bit more, like I say, a bit less bling and a little bit older money. So I don't think that's changed at all. I think if I was to give one thought on what Sotogrande should do as a place, is they don't just need to sort of really show what Sotogrande is internationally to tap into that demand that's from Marbella, because it's much harder, much easier to sell at source than it is to try and tap into, to convince people that want there to come here instead. But I think there's some work for Sotogrande that they could quite easily do in Marbella to teach them about Sotogrande, because again, there's a lot of new agencies. It's something that they forget is here, and maybe through the MLS they will kind of stumble upon something that fits their clients' needs, but not because they were looking in Sotogrande specifically as an agent for their client. It was more like, oh, this fits the bill. No,
I think agents will obviously look at their inventory first, because that's where they work. Then they look at what they can share with people around it, and then if they really come stuck, then they'll look at us. And that, I find that's what's happening. I mean, I've got a big house here, and I want to get it off. And I've been on the phone to Ugo, and I've been on the phone to Drumelia, and I've been on the phone to Dana Morales, and they all would like to come and have a look at the house, and but specifically for and hopefully they'll come and list it. But generally speaking, I find people end up in Sotogrande once it's at the bottom of the thing. I know Sotogrande SA did some work, and they had literally an office on the
opposite the Marbella, opposite the Marbella Club.
That was there for a while, which pissed off all the agencies here. Not pissed them off because it was there, but what can we do about it? But we were asked to help them sell, but then they go over there and get people coming in. So it's the issue, the old thing about the developer and all that, which we're not going to get into. But yeah, I think there is more work to be done. You're right. You can go, but I think it'll be individual rather than Sotogrande, because who is Sotogrande? Is it Sotogrande SA? They can go up there,
Sure,
and sell their
yeah.
product, but who's going to sell the kings and queens? It's down to different agents.
Yeah.
So it's networking, and
I think the work you're doing in your social, and as more agents adopt it in the coming years, will do that work.
yes,
I think it will.
so.
I think it will, because I see stuff every week about Sotogrande
Yeah.
that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't.
Right.
The end.
Yeah.
You know, and this applies to everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Well, anyway, thank you for that, and great to have you down at this end of the Costa, and hope to see you some more. And it's great to have you.
Always good to chat, man. We could be here all day, could we?
No, we could.
Thank you.
Let's go get some lunch, and we can do that. Okay?
We can do that.
So there you are, everybody. Alfredo, a great friend now, we can call him, coming all the way down to Sotogrande to meet with us and talk to you and give us his insights into what's going on the real estate market and videoing and all that. See you next time.